Now let's talk about how to evolve from entrepreneur to CEO. Let me do an analogy before I continue. But when you see a baby of 2 years old compared to a kid of 16, you kind of know what kind of food they want, what kind of attention, education they need, because we've been seeing it for thousands of years and we see thousands of kids and we know what do they need. In companies, it's the same. And it's not a company of 2 years against a company of 16 years. No, it's how many team members do you have that make the complexity of the company, because I've seen companies that they've been 20 years in operation and they still have 3 team members. And there's some companies that have thousands of employees in the first year of operation. What really gives the maturity and the complexity of a company is the amount of team members. And that's how you have to evolve from entrepreneur to CEO to really lead a team of that size. And then here's what I think is the second thing that is important. I talk with a lot of entrepreneurs and they always said, I want to have $100 million company, or I want to have 100 million clients, or whatever. They always put a goal. But I always ask them, who do you have to become to have that? Like the company doing $100 million, they have a product that they're serving X amount of people. That's why they're generating $100 million. And they have a management team that knows how to lead a company of 100 million. And they have a leader that attracts a management team at that level to become that. Before you become a $100 million company, you have to become a leader of a $100 million company. And then you're going to be able to command a $100 million company. If you don't become that, then it happens what you've seen with people that win the lottery. People that never had money or they have very little money, they win the lottery and they're broke 3 years after. They just destroy it, because if you don't build it and you don't become the person that commands 5 million, 10 million or whatever, then you're going to blow the money and destroy it. Same thing happens with entrepreneur. You have to become a certain leader to attract a certain team for the team to be able to build a company of a certain size. A company with 2 or 3 employees, the education, the knowledge, the leadership, the disciplines of delegation are completely different from a company with 5 team members than a company with 5,000 team members. So as an entrepreneur, if you want to scale your company, you first have to scale your team to be a team that commands that company and solves that problem or add that value to the world. And then you have to become the entrepreneur and the leader that will attract that team and will build that team. Let's talk about people and sizes. And yes, of course, there's companies with 12 employees doing $1 billion company. You can have, but those are outliers. Let's talk about the general population. And I'll give you some numbers for you to understand the size of company and number of employees. In the US, a small and mid-sized firm in the US does around $120,000 revenue per employee. So whenever I talk with an entrepreneur, I ask them, hey, how many team members do you have? Well, we're 10 team members. I say, well, you should be doing around $1.2 million to $1.5 million. How do you know? Have you seen my numbers? And I was like, no, but that's the average. And some companies, they use a lot of technology and they're doing way more than that. And there's some companies doing less than that. They are very hands intensive or people intensive and they do less than that. The same numbers, I have it for other countries. As an example, Mexico, my home country, is around $40,000 revenue per employee. And I've been using it for the last 5 or 6 years. And I use the number on stage when I'm doing a speaking or whatever. And they were like, how you got it? I'm like at 41, I'm at 45, I'm at 37. Like it's kind of the range. And that's, of course, the average. India is around $18,000 revenue per employee. So you could sense the complexity of a market and the size of market depending on the revenue per employee. So each company usually, and this is the average 80 or 90% in the middle, that's kind of the revenue per employee. Just to compare, in the US, a Fortune 500 company does $500,000 revenue per employee. So they're 4 times more efficient, if you want to call it, than a small firm. Why? Systems, money, brand, everything. They have distribution channels, everything that the small ones don't have. So they produce up to 4 times more revenue per employee. Apple, as an example, they don't have that revenue per employee. They have that profit per employee. So you are doing $120,000 revenue per employee, and they're doing $500,000 profit per employee. And that's how you're competing against. So what gives the complexity of an operation is the amount of team members that you have. And depending on your team members, depending on the market and the industry that you are, you're going to have an average. If you have a company that is a heavy technology user, they're probably doing $250,000, $300,000 per employee. If I go today to the top 10 biggest technology companies in the US, I'm probably going to get a $500,000 revenue per employee because they have heavy use of technology. What gives complexity to every company is the amount of team members. And the amount of team members that you have, your complexity of the leadership and the delegation systems and communication systems usually has to evolve. When you are 1 to 5 people, you don't even have to tell your story or tell the strategy of the company. They're all doing what you're doing. Once you get to around 15, you have to start verbalizing your strategy. Now you have to tell people, hey, we're going to go there. That's why this is important. You have to learn how to verbalize your strategy. Then once you cross around 20, you start getting managers and leaders. Now you have to lead through other leaders. And that creates a whole different level of complexity, because now you start playing phone. You tell something to your leader and your leader distortions the message to the team members. So your leadership and your communication, you have to be way, way more clear and intention in your communication and your strategy, so everyone will understand and will be aligned. And once you cross around the 250 mark, then you have enough management team, systems, processes, everything that you could kind of step aside and the team will run your operation without you. In the day-to-day, you're there, just kind of a satellite around the organization, just making sure the organization is going in the right direction and bringing the innovation. So that's kind of how you have to evolve from being an entrepreneur to a leader of leaders, to a CEO. So what is to me a CEO? Is someone that can lead a company that the company could run without you. If you are in the center of the company and the company needs you to be at the center, you don't have a company. You have an auto-employment. Once you have a company that has an engine and provides a service or value to the market without you having to touch any part of the business. And that's when you're really a CEO or an owner of a company. I believe the value of death between stage 2 and 3, based on my model, it goes around between 20 employees and 70, 80 employees. Once you cross 80 team members in your company, you have enough engine or capability to have a strong management team, and you have enough revenue to be able to pay and command the cost of that management team for then the management team to be able to run most of your company without you. Yes, it's called a CEO, but for me, you're a leader of leaders. You are learning how to lead through other leaders. And yes, you could call it a CEO. And I am a CEO and I have 36 team members in my company. I think it's the position, but my reality in my position is very different if I'm a CEO of a company with 20 employees, with 50 or with 250. My relationship and my day-to-day responsibilities are completely different depending on the size of the business.